welcome to the Wednesday, October 30th meeting of the Finance Committee of the Board of Education. Tonight has been noticed as an initial opportunity for people, members of the public, to offer input on various possibilities for budgetary programs or budgetary spending as we develop our proposed budget for 2014-2015. I should just tell people that the full Board of Education met on Monday with members of the district leadership team, the principals predominantly, and the assistant superintendent and associate superintendent to talk about some of their priorities. Just to let people know, we've received a very well-researched and very passionate presentation from the elementary school principals about all-day kindergarten. I'm sure that's an issue that more than one person is going to propose or discuss tonight. We did also receive some ideas that are other possibilities right now in terms of instructional coaches and some other potential programmatic changes or alternatives. I do want to just mention, I want to start off with maybe asking Dr. Freeman to just outline a little bit what the process is going to be going forward, because it's hard to believe that we're already talking about a new budget, and we're 3 months into the current budget year, and we're already working to try to develop a reasonable budget for 2014-2015. But I do want to start by just noting that tonight is Keith Bishop's last meeting with the Board of Education after 22 years. Monday. Well, I understand. I forgot about tonight's meeting. So that's after 22 years of service to the Board of Education and to the entire town of Guilford. I want to publicly thank Keith for all the work he's done, and I can't imagine the number of hours that have been put in over the 22 years. I still think that that's the longest serving member of the Board of Education in the history of the town of Guilford. I found out Mr. Kennefick, Judge Kennefick, was a little bit less. So I do want to thank you, Keith, for everything, and I'm sure this will be an interesting last meeting and hopefully one that will cause us to take some positive steps moving forward.
Thank you very much, Bill.
So, Dr. Freeman, do you want to just summarize where we are? And I should just add that Dr. Freeman has not prepared a proposed budget yet. He has not met finally with the district leadership team to forward recommendations to the board. But just in general, first it's going to be the administration will put together a proposed budget. Then it will come to the Board of Education. And then it will be again presented for consideration by the public after. The board receives the superintendent's proposal, and then toward the end of January, the board will actually vote on a proposal to move forward to the Board of Finance. The Board of Finance then has the opportunity to weigh in on it and does have the opportunity to make changes to it. Then it goes to town meeting, then it goes to referendum. So this is the first, or maybe the second step in what is probably a very long process on everything that we are going to be considering. So I want to thank everybody for coming out. I know that there's a baseball game later, but I don't care about it. My team got beat, so I'm out of it. So I can stay here all night. So, Dr. Freeman, if you can just summarize what you think, what the next steps are.
Thank you, Mr. Bloss. So at this time, the administration is in the very early stages of pulling together our budget that we will bring forward to the community and then to the Board of Education ultimately for your input and approval. At this point, we have met as a leadership team, and again on Monday evening, as Mr. Bloss said, with the Board of Education, and spoken in broad thematic terms about what we see as our needs moving forward in this year's budget. Essentially, to a large degree, this year's budget will need to focus on supporting and continuing and cementing many of the initiatives that we invested in last year and that will need continued support moving forward. So as we continue to work with our special education programming in the district, and as we have built local capacity to support our children, we made significant structural changes in the close of last year and in the opening of this year. We'll need to continue focusing on that work. As we bring new curricula and new instructional approaches into the district around the Common Core state standards. We will need to continue to focus on professional development and resource support and support for teachers in classrooms as they roll out their work in those areas. And as we continue to learn more and become more skilled at the new teacher and administrator evaluation plans that have been put into place, as we shift this year from a pilot program with only 1/3 of our certified teachers in the new system, and next year with 100% of our new teachers, we'll have to look carefully, teachers and administrators next year.
All teachers, you say good.
All teachers next year. We will have to look carefully at our administrative capacity and our ability to do that work and continue to support those teachers in that work. So much of this year's focus needs to be on continuing the work that we have already tackled and doing that work well. Additionally, thematically, we know that we are looking at full-day kindergarten. It is something that we explored last year. It began moving through the budget process last year, but did not complete its way through the budget process. I said clearly last year that I believe the question about full-day kindergarten for this community is a question of when and not if. So we will continue to look at full-day kindergarten and explore that as a component of this budget this year. And there will be continued instructional supports, both around the areas that I just mentioned, as well as in the area of supporting our highest achieving students and how we support them and stretch them in the school district. Early components, thematic components in this budget cycle are looking at resources again, materials, teacher support, and most specifically the idea of extended coaching support. We have done well with coaches in the areas of literacy, the idea of supporting our highest achieving students and addressing instruction in the mathematic area seem to be themes that are overlapping this year. And so the idea of focusing some of our resources on instructional coaches in the mathematics area are all in those earliest thematic stages. The next step for us is that each building principal and each area department leader are working on their individual budgets. We will begin to vet those individually and compile those together through meetings with every principal, with every department manager, to compile our first draft budget. As we go through that, then it is a process of vetting each budget, making sure that we have our numbers as sharp as possible, working with the unavoidable annual cost increases every year, and making sure that we have those under control and that the numbers are as low as possible in all of those unavoidable cost increase areas. Looking at efficiencies across the budget, finding ways that we can do better with less, and then ultimately working with a priority process as we put together a final budget that we think supports the goals of this district, continues our growth, because we will never rest on our laurels. We will always continue to improve, and that is the budget that we will ultimately bring forward to the board. You'll have, again, public hearings where we present that budget, and tonight you get to hear what the community is looking for. In those public hearings, you'll get to hear what the community thinks of our draft administrative budget, and then you, the board, will move forward from that point, making changes, making adjustments, adopting your final budget, which then goes through the town process as you just detailed. We're excited to get to work on it again.
Great. I'm going to suggest, let me just ask maybe a quick question. How many people who want to talk, and we don't have any time limits tonight, we're going to be as people are going to have as much of a chance to say what they want as they wish. How many people want to talk only about all-day kindergarten? Who wants to talk about something other than all-day kindergarten? All right, here's what I'm going to suggest. Guess what? Since you're something else,
Why wait through?
I'm going to suggest that if you want to address us first, and then we'll move to all-day kindergarten, if that seems reasonable, then we can focus on that rather than have people jumping up and down.
Such a deal.
On that. Are you a Red Sox fan?
I'm sorry?
Are you a Red Sox fan?
Yeah.
Okay. So it all works out. So, go ahead. Yeah, please.
Wow.
And I would ask that, for whatever reason, we have a practice in town of giving your name and your address. I don't know why, but that's what we do. So if you can do that, that'd be terrific. And again, we're not going to cut anybody off. I just ask, though, that there are obviously a lot of people who want to speak. if you have something particularly lengthy, maybe let other people go first, or sit down and come back up, whatever. Just just be thoughtful about other potential speakers. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, my name's Marion Breeze, and in this day and age, I should probably say marionbreeze@msn.com. That's my address. No, my address is 42 Arrowhead Drive. I'd like to talk a little bit about resources. I think that one of the extraordinary challenges that you faced this year and that teachers face is not only the budgetary resources and materials, but time. I am involved both at Adams and at Guilford High School this year in parent organizations, the PTO at Adams and at Theater Arts Parent Support at Guilford High School. And what I've been hearing consistently from teachers, I ran into a teacher here at Adams last week that was so excited, genuinely excited, because she had the rest of her week planned in terms of her curriculum. This is a teacher with a lot of experience, and this is a teacher who normally had things planned out weeks or months in advance, but because of Common Core and some of the other challenges that they're facing this year, it's been extraordinarily difficult for teachers this year. And so when you look at next year and you look at how you might be reallocating your budgetary resources, I would just ask that you please do it in a way that's very mindful of resources of time as well. One of the things I mentioned last June was I would love to see at Adams at least, if not at Baldwin as well, more time for teachers to prepare for conferences. At Adams, teacher conferences are really for students who are facing particular challenges rather than for a chance for parents to meet. The approach is parents can meet with a teacher anytime during the year, and that conference periods aren't really used in the same way that they are at Baldwin or at Guilford High School. I would say as you look at the budget for next year, think about professional development for teachers that allows them to use that conference time in new and innovative ways. And that requires, of course, professional development. So when you think about resources and professional development, as we're trying to meet these new state standards, just look at resources in a slightly different way. I would also like to see, as part of next year's budget, consistent assessment tools that teachers can use to identify students who have particular needs, either high potential learners or students who might be facing particular challenges that have not been identified in previous years. So that student might be coming into Adams as a new student, a transfer student, or it might be a student who, a challenge didn't show up because it's been fairly easy for them and they come into Baldwin and suddenly there's a need that's identified. So I'd like to see, as part of the budget for next year, assessment tools as part of the materials budget that can address those needs. The second thing I'd like to see is, frankly, a different approach to professional development for teachers. With the Common Core state standards and with professional learning communities, I know of teachers this year who, in the first 3 months of school, have had 6 professional learning community, PLC, commitments in the first 3 months of school. I think that is not a realistic thing for to ask a teacher to do in terms of professional development. So as you look at resources for next year and you look at PLCs, look at it maybe in a different way with fresh eyes and see how those resources can be better allocated. Whether it's professional development time or different types of professional development people that you bring in to help them. Another thing I'd like to see is in your budget for next year is materials for differentiated learning. I think the teachers do an extraordinary job with the materials that they have, but I'd like to see a little bit more focus on what kind of materials you're going to provide for them next year. And the last thing I'd like to see is accelerated courses and a different look at accelerated courses next year, particularly in the high school level. I have been talking to a couple of high school students who are in probably the top 10% of their class, and one of the things that they've seen as prospective college students is that top-tier colleges are asking that students take science electives. We don't have science electives at Guilford High School right now. We have computer science, but we don't have astronomy. We don't have history of science. We don't have some of those other opportunities that other really top-performing high schools, public high schools in our community have. And so I would like to see something more along those lines. We have courses right now, like AP Human Geography, that's offered to seniors that really isn't relevant in the same way that some of the other courses could be. So as you're looking at the budget for next year, I just ask that you take a look at what resources you have, and since we've been thinking outside the box for so many other things in how we can address Common Core state standards, let's really look outside the box. Let's really look at all the courses that we're offering, whether it's a level 0 English class for sophomores. Perhaps we need to look at offering an accelerated English course or accelerated history courses. We used to offer a lot more history electives in the high school. Those are gone. We need to be considering and be mindful of perhaps bringing those back for the younger grades, for the sophomores in high school, perhaps even for the freshmen, and maybe not putting so much of an emphasis on some of the courses that have been a little bit more outdated for the seniors. So I applaud you, parents, for looking at full-day kindergarten, but as your kids get older, I think you'll thank me later for thank you.
Okay. And I'm going to suggest that unless anybody has any just comments that just they can't hold for whatever reason, tonight's really a public hearing, so rather than dialogue on any particular comments, if we can just at least listen to the public first, and if we want to talk a little bit later, that's great, but we're going to have obviously plenty of opportunities to do that.
Right.
Okay. So, okay, you want to turn to all-day kindergarten? Is that the next agenda item? All right.
I'll go first.
I guess I shouldn't call it all-day kindergarten. It's not exactly all-day, is it? It would be more like full-day. Make it equivalent to,
We don't want it
yeah, it'd be more like equivalent to.
It's not residential.
Right. Equivalent to grades 1 through 4, I think just to be clear about it, but please.
Good evening, my name is Jennifer Manon. I currently teach kindergarten at Guilford Lake School. This is my 6th year in the district and my 4th year teaching kindergarten. And I recently had the opportunity to visit a full-day kindergarten at Mary Tisco School in Brantford. And I was joined by 3 other principals who are here and 2 other kindergarten teachers on both sides of me. And we started our day by meeting with the principal and the literacy specialist. While discussing some background information about the switch to full day, I think the principal said it best. He said they're able to have full implementation of Readers and Writers Workshop. They teach math and science or social studies each day, and they allow the kids time to be kids each day. So I just want to share with you what their typical day looks like. They have 10 minutes of responsive classroom, 20 minutes of shared reading, 45 minutes of Readers Workshop, 20 minutes 3 times a week of literacy stations, 45 minutes of Writers Workshop, lunch, recess, and a little bathroom break, 30 minutes of math, 15 minutes of interactive writing, 30 minutes of science or social studies, 10 minutes of read aloud, snack, and typically during that time most teachers incorporate a little bit of independent reading for the students, a 46-minute special, and then 20 minutes of free choice that typically takes place in the afternoon. The children have a choice between art, blocks, Legos, dramatic play. So I want to share that schedule with you because it's a lot more than we're actually pulling into our classroom in a day. And I wanted to share with you the things I observed. In the first classroom, I observed the teacher was introducing a reader's workshop lesson. She had a student model partner reading with her. The student was able to read his book, he reread when he got stuck on words, and he used the picture to decode new words. I was absolutely convinced that this student had to be one of her higher readers, because at this point in the year, that's my higher readers. When I had the chance to speak with her, she shared that he was one of her average readers. So this proved to me that the amount of instructional time these students receive compared to our kindergarten students has allowed them to reach this higher level of reading. Our students currently participate in Readers Workshop, but they are missing out on a scheduled shared reading each day and a story time each day, which is clearly reflecting into their performance in Readers Workshop. In the second classroom, I observed the teacher was introducing a Writers Workshop small moment lesson. With a 45-minute writing block, she was able to incorporate a turn and talk with the students. This allowed the students the opportunity to share their writing with a partner before they started their own writing. Once the students began, they were engaged in their writing. During this time, the teacher and paraprofessionals circulated the room conferring with students only about their writing content. This is because they have an additional time where they are able to reflect during interactive writing on talking about mechanics and other specifics in that area. So the work that they were producing was well beyond where our students are at this point. I feel that this is largely due to the fact that not only do the students participate in the writer's workshop, but also the interactive writing. Our students do participate in a writer's workshop block, but it's shortened due to our shortened day. As a result, we find ourselves incorporating much of our writing instruction into this short 30 to 20 minute block. I share these observations with you because I feel strongly that the demands of kindergarten have increased each year. Each year, the demands require me to omit certain things. One part of kindergarten that we have omitted is time for students to participate in structured play. During structured play, students are able to problem solve with one another. From my experience in kindergarten, this requires cognitive and social rigor, and it helps children with the grit needed to succeed in school. I want to share some information, some research that I found to prove to you how important it is for students to have this time. In the book titled Crisis in Kindergarten, Why Children Need to Play in School, it states that engagement in pretend play has been found to be significantly and positively correlated with text comprehension, metalinguistic awareness, and understanding of the purpose of reading and writing. Moreover, children who are educated in play-based environments have the added advantage of being strong problem solvers, more flexible thinkers, and better collaboration, important traits that define a successful adult. Last year was my first year that the students didn't have a built-in time to work on problem-solving skills. I found that my students were lacking in this area, and working collaboratively with peers was very difficult for them. In the past 2 years, parents have also shared with me more and more about how their children are anxious and exhausted when they come home from our nonstop day. A lot of parents have even shared that they've actually seen their children regressing with behaviors, such as wetting the bed, waking up through the middle of the night, and being a little more defiant at home. Are we in kindergarten to learn? Yes, I do not disagree with that. But we don't have the time to incorporate any community building activities which are so important for them. This trip to TISCO was probably the best research I have to share with you, and we can put aside all of the journals we have. We could put aside all of the books that we read about full-day kindergarten. It was evident walking into this room at TISCO that these children were far beyond where our children are in kindergarten. And I think it's important to see that it's proof enough that transitioning to full-day kindergarten is necessary for us as teachers to implement what we're required to implement throughout the year. And we also need it to relieve the anxiety of our students. So I think we need to take a minute and stop to think about what that principal at TISCO said. He said it really well. His teachers are able to address all of the curriculum needs while allowing the students to be kids. We're in the business of education, and we have to stop to think also that our clients are 5- and 6-year-old children. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Tara White. I'm just the supporter. I'm a Guilford resident, and I am also a kindergarten teacher in Guilford. But I spent my first 7 years as a kindergarten teacher at a private school with full-day kindergarten. And I would like to point out just some reflections, concerns, and realities about the differences between full-day and half-day programs. So today, in kindergarten in Guilford, was our 42nd day of school. It's about 105 school day hours from drop-off to dismissal to date in a half-day program. A full-day program would have reached that in 17 and a half days. That's really alarming. 17 and a half days versus 42 days. There are a lot of reasons why it's important to move to a full-day program, and I will list some of them. Well, I might as well do that for you now. So, time to implement Common Core. Time for inquiry-based science. That is something that we do not have time for right now, and it's so important for young children. More time for math. Math is one of those subjects that we hear all the time in the older grades, we're falling behind, but there's not enough time in kindergarten to really get them off the ground. A full-day program would create an optimal learning environment for young children, which would include academic, social, creative, and physical development. There's a strong need to address social and emotional development of kindergartners. They are dynamic individuals. They're emerging from an egocentric stage of development and just beginning to see themselves in relation to others. And in that light, they're developing a sense of self. And so you take a child who comes in and they're doing only cognitive academic tasks throughout their day. What if that child is someone who's struggling in school, what do they think of themselves? How do they feel? How do they see themselves in relation to their peers? It's so important to develop that positive self-concept early on, and if you have time for play, time for creativity, time for social interaction, time for the kids to get to know each other. They can see kids in a different light. They can learn more about them. They can share each other's strengths and weaknesses. And that's really important and speaks a lot to children's view of themselves. It's important to remember that kindergarten is a gateway to the school system. It should be a place where children are happy and develop a love of learning and want to come to kindergarten and are excited for the fun learning experiences, because learning is fun in kindergarten. And I hate to say it, but PM kindergartners are at a disadvantage. They come in at a time of day that is very, very difficult for 4-, 5-, and 6-year-olds. And in a full-day program, we would have those kids from the beginning of the day when they're at their best, and then have the less rigorous activities in the afternoon, have their creative time in the afternoon, have their specials, have some things that require a less tax on their brains. And the first half of the year is just so hard during that middle of the day. I've seen it in full day. I've seen it here in part day. It's really a challenge for them. So I think we also need to keep in mind that we're educating individuals with the end goal of fostering skills that enable people to become capable of positively contributing to society. Skills such as collaboration, communication, content knowledge, and creative thinking. And there are really some skills that can only be learned in a natural setting that includes play and includes social interaction. I'm sure you've heard it said time and time again, but play is the work of young children, and kindergartners are just that. So I'd like to take a moment and illustrate to you the benefits of having time to play in kindergarten, what I've seen firsthand in my full-day kindergarten class, where we had plenty of time for reader's workshop, writer's workshop, math, science-based or inquiry-based science, and then time for art, time for social interaction, time for outside time, and time for us to get to know the kids and the kids to get to know each other. So during such times, children wrote books. They wrote and illustrated menus and signs for the bakery or the pet store or whatever shop inhabited our dramatic play area. They built structures that fell down, and they had to find a way to rebuild them that actually provided stability. That's young engineering at work. And they worked collaboratively, they shared ideas, and they experimented with their hypotheses. Additionally, these same children came looking for paper, pencils, and crayons to record their experiences in pictures and words. They had to work out differences, express their feelings and ideas in words, and listen to one another's thoughts in real, genuine circumstances. Those are actually standards that are in the Common Core, and they're very difficult to implement if there's not an authentic opportunity. Additionally, as new families come to move into the area, they are going to look to see if we have full-day kindergarten. And if they look at Madison, and they look at Bramford, and they look at Guilford, and they say, oh, well, Guilford doesn't have full-day kindergarten. Let's look at a town either side. It's a very real issue. And then finally, as a parent, I have a 3-year-old. She'll be coming to kindergarten in 2 years. And I can't express strongly enough how important that decision is for young children entering our school system. We have the opportunity to share the joys of school with children, and I believe it is our duty to create an atmosphere that invites learning across the developmental domains so that a child can excel in their strengths and experience meaningful achievements every day. A positive experience in kindergarten is our first step toward engaging in a lifetime of learning. Life is a journey. Shouldn't kindergarten be also?
Jen shared with you the schedule that we saw at TISCO. This is my morning schedule. My name is Maureen Shields. I've been teaching kindergarten at Melissa Jones since 2001. And I want to say I love my job. I love teaching students. I love opening their minds to new learning and watching them grow. Many times I hear people say to me, How do you do it? I heard it at Tisco. How do you do it? And I do it. It's hard, I do it. Our new learning right now is very rushed. We don't have the opportunity to try out new things. Sometimes the attitude is just keep going, keep going, keep going. You got to get through it. They'll get it. We're already seeing they're not getting it. It's so fast-paced. I've had to stop and back up because it's the end of October, and I'm asking them to write every day. They're looking at me like, oh, hey, I'm writing, and I'm looking at it, and okay, they're not getting this. It's a stream of letters, and I've had to back up and say to them, okay, hold on, let's stop, hold the horses. This is the process. This is what we have to do. I've had to slow down, and that is the reality. As professionals in all of our jobs, we all want to be thorough. We want to cover all the bases and take the time to do a good job. Just imagine for a minute your day tomorrow. I'm sure you all have your day planned out. Everything you need to get done before lunch. Maybe you have a lunch meeting. What you're going to do after lunch. By the time you get home at 5 o'clock, and hopefully not tonight, but you can sit down and relax. Now think about getting all that done in 2 hours, because that is what we're doing, and that's what we're being asked to do every day. The kids need more time to practice what they've learned. They need the time to figure it out, like Tara said. They need time to gain the independence. The teachers need more time to assess, to work with their struggling or high-achieving students. We need time to meet the individual needs. We're seeing more and more behavior challenges creeping up because of the stress of the fast-paced day. You can see at my schedule, there is not 1 minute that we are not moving or doing something. And I have to tell you, honestly, it is extremely hard every day to meet that schedule that I've laid out for myself. I spoke to you last year about how I was alternating the days, doing writer's workshop and reader's workshop, and how confusing that was to the kids. So this year my goal was to try to get it in on every day. I'm getting it in, but holy moly. Can I go to the bathroom? Can you just wait because you're going to miss something? Can you wait? And they're like, oh. That is the reality of my day. We didn't get to snack today, Mrs. Shields. I'm sorry. I promise we'll get to it tomorrow. Unfortunately, that is the reality of our day. Not all the kids in kindergarten come to us in Guilford. They don't all come to us having gone to pre-K or having the advantage of staying home with a mom that reads to them every day and sings the ABCs. Some of our kids aren't able to even read their names. They cannot hold a two-way conversation with their peers because they've never even interacted with other children. We don't have the time to teach them how to do that. And then the behavior challenges creep up. We're asking these children to write books, to discuss stories, and to decompose numbers, which until last year, I didn't even know what that meant. I invite you all to come. Come to any of our rooms and see what our day is like. It's easy for you to look at the schedule and see how crazy it is. Come and see what we do, and come and see all that we are asking of these kids to do.
And be prepared to help out.
Wear your sneakers. Sometimes in kindergarten, it's felt like we're on an island. We've sometimes gone to workshops, and I'm talking, the past 15 years. We've gone to workshops where presenters have said to us, when we raise our hands and say, what about kindergarten? Oh, I'm sorry, this isn't really geared towards kindergarten.
You can lower it.
Just lower it down to your level. We've been left out of programs because it's occurred when our kids aren't there. Parents end up bringing their kids back to school for services because they don't want them to miss out on the 2 hours of learning that they do have. So parents end up bringing them back. We sometimes send things home for parents to work on at home because we don't have the time in our day. In the past, the district has had many priorities, such as special needs programs, programs for high achievers, even a new high school. I feel that these priorities have sometimes been met because many people have advocated for them. Kindergarten parents are often new to the world of their child's education, with their oldest child just coming to kindergarten. They don't know that they need to come tonight, so we're here tonight as their advocates. I really feel it's time to stop putting kindergarten, saying we'll get to it. Make your youngest and most eager students a priority, and please give us the time to teach them and to help them become the learners that we know that they can be. Thank you.
And I'll just add, I don't have fancy notes or anything like that, but I'm Amy Bradley. I teach at Melissa Jones and at Guilford Lakes. And, preschool in our town usually is 4 hours. So many times the parents in our community, their kids have gone longer and now they're going a less amount of time to kindergarten, which is a disadvantage. So I'm just going to add that part too.
I just had one last piece that I was going to pass out to you. Just some data from last year that I kind of think is nice to look at when we look at who's full day, who's still half day. And I'll pass this out to you in just a moment. But there, as of last year, the start of the 2012-2013 year, there were 103 school districts, 7 charter schools, and 11 magnet schools that were full day. And there were 9 school districts and 1 charter school that did an extended day. And for half day, there were 36 school districts and 13 districts provided a half day kindergarten to some children. So those are just some numbers that we can look at, and we already know that out of those 36 school districts that were half day last year, one of them is Madison, which we now know has moved over to full day. So I just wanted to share that with you. I got it from the Connecticut State Department of Education. Just more handouts. You normally put smiley faces on them.
Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
One more teacher.
Yeah, I'm Barbara Succi. I teach at Melissa Jones, and I live in Guilford as well. I started my teaching career in Guilford as a kindergarten teacher, so I'm here giving my fellow coworkers some support and understanding of the hectic day that they have. 15 years ago, half-day kindergarten may have been okay for these kids to get through, but times have changed now. The demands have changed. The Common Core is here. Our school resources and the programs that we're using are all based on a full-day curriculum, which is very difficult for these kindergarten teachers to do. And as a first grade teacher, I feel that it's difficult for first grade teachers because we're also playing catch up as much as the kindergarten teachers are doing a wonderful job with the time that they have. I feel that some of my students I'm seeing having difficulty getting through the long day. They're having difficulties with social emotional problems. Children are crying because somebody put the game away because they wanted to do it. Little problems like that where if they had time to develop those social emotional skills in kindergarten, in first grade, they can handle those situations more appropriately. I also feel that with the Readers and Writers Workshop in the math, we're supposed to spend time and dig deeper into their learning. However, when they come up to us in first grade, we have to do some backtracking. As an example, coming into first grade for Common Core, they need to have already mastered their math facts to the sums or totals of 5. And I'm assessing my students, they have not had that mastered. So we're playing catch up from kindergarten because they don't have time in the day now before I could move on to start teaching what's expected sums of 10 at this point of the year for first grade. So that's just some examples that I'm here is to shed some light that I feel that if they came in and if we had full day kindergarten, we are able to take off with what they have learned in a full day program and then push them further. And then that would be a domino effect onto second and third and fourth grade. And so right now, the first grade teachers are trying to quickly teach them what they need to have learned in a full day kindergarten based on the new Common Core standards and then move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Please.
Eric and Tara Brinkman, 574 Long Hill Road, Red Sox fans. Actually, I don't know if I'm more nervous to talk to you or watch the game, so I figured I'd talk to you. We are both teachers, not in Guilford, Cheshire, Haddam, Killingworth, 6th and 5th grade. We are here to support full-day kindergarten and support what the teachers had just said. As a parent of a 3.5-year-old, actually, I don't want to send my son to school now after listening to all this, but I know I have no choice. We are in the predicament now of Guilford does not have full-day kindergarten. We've got a son in preschool right now who is growing in leaps and bounds, and he's 3.5. So when we get to kindergarten, he's gonna go back to 2-hour day, and quite honestly, we're thinking about taking him, paying to send him to another town, which I love the town of Guilford. I've been here for 13 years, but for me to have to say, hey, I've got to send him to another district to get him to grow, something's not right with that picture. And so as a parent, and I know I heard a couple teachers say the same thing, to me, as a member of this town, which I love, if the services are incredible, that's part of the reason why we moved to this town, for the schools. But, so, all right, so 7 to 8 hours a day, back to 2, hey, we've got to send them to another town. As a taxpayer in the town of Guilford, yes, my taxes have gone up every year, and I know, it's worth it. I voted for the high school. We're here to support full-day kindergarten. We want our son to grow. We do want him to learn social skills as well. And being teachers, trust me, 6th grade and 5th grade, we're seeing the results. The Common Core, I can't even imagine for a kindergarten student. It's bad enough for 6th grade students. But to try to squeeze that into 2 hours, I can't imagine how it could be done successfully. Cannot. I don't know if you, anything else. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments? Other thoughts? Please.
Good evening. My name's Adam Carup. We're at 978 Little Meadow Road. Here as a parent, concerned parent of 3 children. We've had, my daughter has been through Guilford Lakes. She's in 2nd grade now. And so we've been through the kindergarten program. We've been in town for about 6 years now, and really we had a choice and chose Guilford for a lot of different reasons, but one of which, and most importantly for the school, for our family. And I had a wonderful experience at Guilford Lakes with her, and she's thriving and really doing great in 2nd grade. And we have a son who is in kindergarten now, and started off bright and happy and excited, and slowly we've seen that glimmer and that light really kind of dwindle, and got to a point where we had to intervene and really meet with the school. And I have to commend the staff at Guilford Lakes. They've been great working with us to make things better for him. And really, we have experienced some of those regressions that Mrs. Manon mentioned with him, unfortunately. And this was a child who thrived in pre-K, and really we were looking forward to the next step with him. And so again, they've been great helping us make this better for him. We realize it's going to be work this year for him and for us and for the staff there. And I also have a younger daughter who, again, we want to make sure we've got the right system in place for her coming up into kindergarten to make her successful. And I heard a couple of things that really rang true. I think one of the teachers mentioned it being a gateway. And I think that's very important to set up his school career for him. We've heard things and feedback from him to understand what his challenges and concerns were about it not being fun, and realizing the skills and the things he can learn from that creative play that he can get. We sit in our seat all morning, and we don't get to move around a lot. And all of the fun stuff has been put away. And my daughter prepped him wonderfully for kindergarten about how much he'd enjoy it, and many of the things she talked about, unfortunately, he's been unable to experience because of the changes. And we recognize the staff is under a tremendous amount of pressure. And we're going to make him successful this year. And we have thought about going elsewhere if we had to, which is really unfortunate. And we'll do that for our daughter that's beneath him if we have to. But we really want to see this get set up for a success path for her. And again, like I said, we'll work as hard as we need to make him successful and make this a good first start for him. So again, we're here to support the full-day kindergarten and the staff and the teachers as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Take your time.
I hadn't anticipated speaking, but I just felt a few parents got up. I'm a parent as well. My name is Moira Raider, and I live at 72 Decatur Avenue. And I come from two different perspectives. I have a son who's a 5th grader, and then 3 daughters, 3rd grade, 1st grade, and my daughter's in the preschool program at Guilford Lakes. So I've kind of seen what's expected, and I recognize too that Common Core is changing a lot of that, has changed a lot of that in the past year. But I have a 1st grader now who went through half-day kindergarten last year and is having a lot of social struggles where I just thought she was completely adjusted. Academically, she's fine, but she never got that chance to kind of work out those little kinks that they need to do when they're developing in that age category. Then I have my younger one who's coming up through the preschool program, and I know what's going to be expected of her next year. And I'm just hoping and praying that you will see that a full-day program is really what we should be doing for them, just as to be preparing them for the future, but also just to preparing them as human beings. It's just putting a tremendous amount of pressure on them and their young minds to expect to jam all of this information into them and not to let them be children. And to have that, and I remember my 1st grader last year saying to me, "Mommy, there's no time to play. There's no toys. It's all work, work, work." And why is that? I thought kindergarten was supposed to be fun. And just as a parent and as a citizen of Guilford, I'd love to see the attention given to this really critical time in our students' lives. I've talked to administrators who have said it can take up until 3rd grade for these children to catch up to the children who've had a full-day program. And that's not fair to them. And they don't have a choice. We're just kind of pushing them along. But I'd love to see you give this some serious consideration, and thank you for listening to all of us.
Sure. Others?
I just had one other.
Okay, can I just, let me just see if there's anybody else who hasn't, is there anybody else who hasn't? Okay. I mean, obviously we'll give you as much time as you want, but just if we can let people who haven't had a chance to talk.
Hello, my name is Marianna Tyne. I'm 43 Park Street. I have a 3rd grader and a preschooler right now, and I really strongly support a full-day kindergarten program. My daughter adjusted quite well because she was always quite a high achiever. She loved school. She loved nothing more than work, work, work. My son, on the other hand, is a very boisterous young kid. He loves activity, and I can foresee that if he has to just be told to basically park somewhere for 2.5 hours and just work, I'm going to run into the problems that Moira said she ran into with her 1st grader when she went through things and the kindergarten situation. The other point is that Guilford prides itself on its education system, and it should be proud of what we have here. And it just seems to me incongruous that we would not have full-day kindergarten. We're already seeing parents talking about moving out of the district or taking their kids out of district. Enrollment is down, I know, in many areas. And it begs the question, do people choose Madison or Branford or Clinton, for that matter, over Guilford because they know that their needs are going to be met better? And it would be a shame. We moved here before we had children, and we love living here, and it would pain me to have to send my children elsewhere or private schooling because I felt we were falling behind here to all the other towns on the shoreline. And I just want to put that out there. I think it's academically, there's so much demanded of them, and it's only going to increase down the line. So much is expected. When I think back of my own childhood, there was no little computers that you had to work with and computer sciences. This is all part of the world, and things are going to move. It's a more fast-paced environment. More will be demanded 10 years down the line. If we wait for 5 years to implement a full-day kindergarten, how much further behind are our children going to be compared to the ones in Clinton or Madison or Branford? And I just would urge you strongly to really consider it and find a way to make the budget work with full day. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Yes.
Hi, I'm Sarah Salato, 51 Kendall Court, and I had no intention of speaking, but I just like to talk, so I'm just going to talk. I have 3 children, first, third, and fifth, so I'm out of kindergarten, so I wish we had this conversation a few years ago, but we're here now. And I just have to say a couple of things because it jogged my memory. And my 5th grader went through it, no problems, no complaints, no questions, no nothing. But my 3rd grader, when he was discussing kindergarten with the 1st grader, his thing was, I did ask, do you play? What do you do? And he said, oh gosh, there's no playing in kindergarten. Absolutely not. It's just work. And I didn't really think much of it at the time. And then when my 1st grader last year was in kindergarten, I asked her too, what do you do? What do you play? And again, she responded the same thing. There's absolutely no playing. It is nonstop working. And again, I didn't think a whole lot about it. Now she's in 1st grade. And Mrs. Mancini could probably talk to the fact that we have some emotional, social issues. And so now I'm looking at this and listening to the lady over here who discusses with her 1st grader, and I'm understanding that it's because these things should have been discussed and dealt with in kindergarten, and they never were. Because she was learning to do all of this other stuff, she's academically exactly where she should be, but socially she's dealing with these little issues and problems that I felt like she should have been dealing with and learning to cope with in kindergarten, and she never did, unfortunately. And there's an awful lot of stress that are put on these young little tykes that they just shouldn't be having. 2.5 hours is just such a small amount of time for all of the stuff that these kindergarten teachers and the staff have to teach them and are expected to teach them. And we expect so much from these teachers. We expect so much. We want to make sure that our students, our children, are where they're supposed to be by the time they get to 1st grade. I want to make sure that my kids are exactly where they should be. 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade. So I want my teachers to make sure that they're doing all that they're supposed to be doing. But they need to be given all of the resources and all of the time that it's needed to do that. It's now time. I'm hoping that you're going to do the right thing. It is now time, I believe, to look at these kindergartners, to look at the budget and do the right thing and pass this for the kindergarten, the full-day kindergartner. I really, truly believe that we need this for our town, that it is the time now to help out these little kids, to give them the time they need, and to just move us forward where we need to go. That's it, thanks.
Others? Okay.
So as I was listening to the other people speak, it just occurred to me when they were talking about enrollment being down and some parents putting their children in other schools. Last year I ended and then left in June, and there were about 15, 16 kids on my roster. When we returned in August, 1st grade and Melissa Jones got 14 new students. So now I have 20 kids. I'm not complaining. 15 was really nice. Really nice, but 20 is good. So when I looked at where my students came from, one was a Coast Guard student, but the other ones came from full-day programs. So I was just reflecting on that. So we got 14 new students. So when all 4 1st grade teachers walked in and got our letters, we were very surprised. All of us have 20 kids on our rosters, and they all came from different places outside of school.
We actually talked about that at the last board meeting where we got some enrollment figures. District-wide, there wasn't that kind of a rise. I want to say it was 247 in kindergarten and 260 in the incoming class in 1st grade, I think. So you may have had some people moving into the district too, but it wasn't as dramatic as...
We went from 221 in kindergarten to 243 in 1st grade.
About 20 people across the entire district. And the interesting thing in terms of enrollment is that, our enrollment has dropped some, although less than, less than 2 things, much less than neighboring towns. I mean, Madison has had a very significant drop compared to us. And also less than the demographic study that we commissioned, 10 years ago, Keith? I mean, how long ago was that?
Just before, we were applying to high school.
Yeah, and we have more children now than we thought we were going to have 10 years ago. interestingly enough. So it's
Right, but
complicated.
right, but at kindergarten grade level, and this year, we're all down because we only have 2.5 sessions, correct? And this is the first time with my 15 years in Guilford where I'm now being put in a position saying, please don't move me out of first grade.
Yeah, one
There
thing-
aren't enough kids coming up. But then I'm also thinking of number of kids that we had gotten in August.
One
That
thing I think we've learned, in some number of years, that there, without any obvious objective reason, one class, one grade can be 50 people, 50 students different from the next grade, and on a district-wide basis for absolutely no understandable reason. So I think probably we want to see a little bit more than 1 year to try to predict the trend. But that obviously, look, if there's some enrollment changes, that would give us some flexibility to do some things that we can't do now. I mean, one of the things we've been concerned about in years past is, do we have the physical capacity for all-day kindergarten, given the limitations on our buildings? And I think, that if there were a very substantial capital cost to add classrooms, that would have to be something we would take into, have to consider. Right? I think where we are right now, at least preliminarily, I should just say that we've asked the administration to put together solid cost figures on how much this will cost, because I think, look, that you can't have this discussion without knowing what it's going to cost and what it's going to allow us to do and what it's not going to allow us to do. We have to know what the numbers are, and the administration is going to prepare that, and that's going to be presented to us, I'm sure, at some point. But I think, at least preliminarily, that the administration believes that we would not have to add any space to have all-day kindergarten, which is really good. Because if there were a multi-million-dollar capital cost to do this, that would have to be something that we take into account. So we think that where we are right now is that we're okay on that. So that's the good news. The second thing we've asked the administration to do is Mrs. McCarthy gave us a long list of some research relating to some of the studies concerning the merits, efficacy of all-day kindergarten, and so we've asked for some of those materials to be able to look at and evaluate, and because that's really fundamentally that's what this is about. I don't think there's anybody here who thinks that all-day kindergarten is a bad idea. I mean, nobody thinks that. But the question is, what does the research show? What are the costs? Is it something that we think is the best? We have finite resources, and what is the best way to spend resources? And if we believe, I think I can speak for the rest of the board, if we think that this is a reasonable proposal to present to the public as part of the budget referendum in April, then that's what we're going to do. But right now we're in the information gathering stage, and we are going to look at it the same way we've looked at everything, and that is probably to a very great degree, go through the research, go through the cost data, go through the experience in some of the other towns that have all-day kindergarten now, talk to boards about why they went to it, why did they adopt. We'll talk to Madison and see, well, why did you guys go to this?
Did Madison just shift?
Madison just shifted this year.
Just started in September.
I see Oxford is looking right now at all-day kindergarten, and at least the public comments of the board members is that it seems like they're likely to go to it. And I think we looked at this state data. I think that it's something like, well, it's 103 districts have all day, and another 20-something, 23 have extended day. It's obviously the tide is moving in that direction rather than in the opposite direction, now that there's obviously reasons for that. So, and one comment that was made, several people made comments about how Common Core has affected what we're trying to do. And I'm going to say this, you're going to hear me say this again as the year goes on. I have never seen a time when teachers and administrators are working harder than they're working right now, period. Not close. We're asking them to do more. They have had dropped on them collectively, Common Core, the teacher evaluation programs. That is a big deal. No, we're only going to do a third of the teachers this year and administrators, but by next year it's 100%. I can't tell you how much This is going to change the way we evaluate teachers, both in terms of the substance, and administrators in terms of the substance and the process. It is going to take time. There is, as we meet with teachers and administrators throughout the year just to get input and thoughts about what they think our focus ought to be. And I think everybody says time. Everybody says time. There was an article in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago talking about Singapore, and we always hear about Singapore and how great the schools are in Singapore. And I suppose that's true. I've never been. But out of an 8-hour school day, teachers teach 3 periods, 3 classes, and the rest of the time is spent on preparation of coursework and planning. Is that going to happen in the United States? Is it going to happen in Connecticut? I mean, not anytime soon. It's not. And, you know, I'd love to fix it quickly, but I don't think it's going to get fixed quickly. So, look, we very, very much appreciate everybody's comments. And is there anybody else, I should say, who wants to comment on this or anything else? Please, go ahead.
I'm Liz Mancini. I live at 44 Norton Avenue in Guilford. I'm also school social worker at Guilford Lakes. But my concern is more for this year. I think full-day kindergarten, this would have been the year to implement it. I think we waited a year too long. But I'm concerned about damage happening this year and if there's ways to adjust how we're presenting the curriculum this year, because we have kids for a half day, but it's a full day curriculum. At least that's what I'm hearing. So we are trying to get as creative as we can at Lakes to weave things in that speak to some of the emotional and behavioral issues that are coming up. I don't know if there's a way to make changes so that the way the day is structured can change this year, but I think we still have a lot of school left this year, and I see problems on the horizon because of it, and I don't know if there's a way to alleviate some of that now. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I heard you bring that up with Mrs. Hale. That would be a good place to start. Yes.
Melissa Shaw, 86 Rousseau Drive. First off, I do want to just take a pause and say thank you very much for everything you guys do, volunteer and paid. I think you guys do an amazing job. I think we need to focus not so much on the here and now cost. You've heard a lot of concerns about the cost of the social worker, how much more time they're being utilized because of the stress that the kindergarten and first graders are teaching. But also I am thinking about one of my children had some problems in math, and I'm thinking of how with the new requirements with the Common Core, she would be even more remedial. And how many other kids will need be pulled out more often because they don't meet up to snuff with all the other kids. So you're going to see this increase continuing first grade, second grade. But that's not the here and now. That's not the in-your-face cost. We really need to focus on, if these changes are not made this year, well, how is it going to affect the extra services that these kids, either socially or academically, it's going to cost them? And we really need to address that and think about that. These kids are starting kindergarten. It's going to be their first experience in 5 years. I think it really needs to be a positive one. And I think full-day kindergarten can make a big change on their positive outlook of a full 13-year schooling here in this great town. So I really hope that you guys do consider this full-day curriculum as a necessary part of Guilford Public Schools. Thanks.
Others on this or any other issue? It's okay, there could be something else that we talked about snow plowing.
Nikki Sucanellis, I live at 107 Wilderwood Drive. I currently have a 4.5-year-old who attends Shoreline Montessori School. She loves it. She is adapting well to the curriculum. She is learning things that I never thought that she would have the ability or capacity to learn. They offer a half-day program, they offer a full-day program, and full-day kindergarten is so important to me that we are considering having her go there part of the day and then go to Guilford school system the other part of the day in order for her to get that full-day experience, but also to start school with the same group of kids. Then than to disrupt her and just throw her in at first grade. I think that full day, it's just a matter of time, as you guys have said. So let's try to get it sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Others on this or any other issue? All right. Anybody on the board want to offer any thoughts or comments or observations at this point?
Actually, I have a question, actually. It's, well, first of all, on full day kindergarten, all 4 of my children are now past that, but so I don't have any personal skin in the game on that. But I personally think this is going to be something that we really do want to put to the voters, and if we can pass this, absolutely, and we should have the opportunity to do this in Guilford. I wanted to return to one of the first comments that Ms. Breeze made. We were talking about time, and she was commenting about the fact that teachers don't have time and they have too many PLC commitments. And I'm just wondering, either she or Dr. Freeman could clarify how we might do that with the budget. I mean, one of the things that we have trouble doing in the teacher contract is sort of set in terms of the amount of time that we have, but is there a way to, either rearrange that or give them more time?
There's certainly ways that we could look. We would need to take a look at things like scheduling. There's no way to create time out of whole cloth, but there are ways to use the time that we have differently. There are certainly constraints around that, and contractual constraints would be one of the significant ones. But there are different ways to look at school schedules. There are different ways to apportion time. There are things that you can look at. I will note that changing a school schedule is often more than a year-long project. It takes time to change a school schedule. You want to do research, you want to collect data, you want to visit, and then that is something that is disruptive, and when you think about some of the comments that Mr. Bloss made about the amount that we're asking people to absorb right now, you want to think about a change that significant. But the quick answer is yes, there's ways to look at those. Some of those have budget implications more than others. You could change a schedule, and one of the constraints could be you have to work within the given budget. You can change a schedule and say this is going to have ripple effects, and we're willing to absorb some of that by budgeting a dollar amount for it. So again, it might be longer than a year. You might not be able to begin a schedule committee and have budgetary numbers for it. That would be part of this year's process, but it could be something moving forward. There's a long answer to say yes, but there's detail to it.
I'd like to comment on that just briefly. I think that today's professional development at the high school is a good example. The teachers were brought together in groups, and there are teachers who frankly work great in groups, and there are teachers who just need some time alone to think and to bring things together. You have some very highly educated teachers in our district who are prepared to prepare things on their own, and I think that for next year, you're right. I mean, that scheduling and contracts and all of that is a multi-year process, and I commend you for changing the schedule. When my kids started in Guilford School District, I don't believe there were Wednesday afternoons where teachers could get together and plan, and I think that's fantastic that you put that into place. But I think that there are some things that you could do next year around PLCs where it's not front-loaded and you don't have 6 PLC events happening in the first 3 months of school. I think there are some simple things that you could do for teachers. I'm not a teacher in the district, so I don't know specifically why it turned out that way or why that needs to be that way, but I think that there are certainly some things that could be done for next year, and I would urge you to reapportion, while you do the long-term planning, reapportion what you have for next year and give teachers a little bit more time as individuals to plan, to work independently as well as in groups. I think right now the balance is a little bit off from what I'm hearing from groups of teachers in the group times and the team planning times, which there wasn't enough of before. I think the balance has gone a little bit too far the other way.
One of the things we've done, though, in terms of professional development, especially at the lower grades, is we're trying to move toward a model of what's called embedded professional development. In other words, not pullouts, not meetings, not presentations, but instead the literacy coaches, for example, the poorly named literacy coaches I continue to observe, but effectively the literacy coaches are embedded professional developers, the people that work directly with teachers one-on-one, not in a larger group, not in some other setting, but work on one-on-one on they're perfecting their trade, their craft. And I think it's a really exciting model. We met with the principals on Monday and actually met with the teachers, a group of teachers, about 20 teachers, a month ago, something like that. And we've heard really great things about the literacy coaches. And so that's a model that we think we're going to keep moving toward. It's more in the lower grades right now. But I think that Dr. Freeman has talked about trying to expand it to some of the higher grades. I think it's up at Baldwin already that the literacy coach model is implemented. And I think one other thing we should just note that we're aware of the issues about the electives at the high school. There are more required classes now in terms of state mandates than ever before, and they seem to think nothing of adding one. I don't think they've ever taken one away, in terms of something that we have to do. We are looking very, very carefully though right now at the International Baccalaureate program at the high school. Mr. Macente and a group of teachers from the high school went out to Northport, Long Island to look at a program that's implemented there and has been very successful. There are some issues. I'm going to be honest, as one of the teachers said, it's not all wine and roses. There are some real issues with overlap and replacement or relationship to AP classes. But it's a real interesting program, and I think that's something we're going to look at. But it too has a cost. I forget who said it, Lyndon Johnson or somebody said, you get 100,000 here and $1 million there, and sooner or later you add it up and you're talking about real money. And, we do have to be thoughtful about that. We do. We have finite resources. We're fighting the same kind of issues budgetarily that every governmental entity across the United States is fighting, although fortunately without any shutdowns or any kind of that nonsense. But that's what we're trying to balance as best we can.
Follow up on a couple of the comments as Chris indicated, and I don't have any children left to go through kindergarten, fortunately. However, I do have young people that are coming up through that ranks. So again, it is a pertinent issue to me as well, although I won't be voting on the actual ramifications as sitting on the Board of Ed. About 10 years ago, we sat in the Calvin Lead Auditorium and had a presentation on all day kindergarten that was done by Ann Keene and Nancy Bishop were the key ones at that point in time, and roughly the estimate at that point was $500,000 to implement it, and space was a major consideration at that point because they had a lot higher enrollment. Fast forward, the 10 or so years since that time period, the cost is going to be, $750,000 to $1 million, for hard, fast things. Estimate the administration will have harder figures. But the challenge, those that are watching and here, for what is it that as we adopt and the board weighs the balancing act of different programs, what is it we're currently doing now that we can take and say we're doing a really good job, or we shouldn't be doing that particular program at all in order to take and add in something that affects 8% of our population. It's about 8%. I'm going to take 1/13 of 100% of our students that are out, what's in the kindergarten ranks that way. So it's a significant population that this affects, and obviously we'll have a trickle-up effect to, as been alluded to here tonight. But we've done some great things in special ed over the years. Again, things don't change super fast in government, and we're part of government for better or for worse, volunteering to help out in what we do. But we made some inroads in special ed programs this past year. We brought programs back at Lakes to bring students in-house. That has, I think, a direct positive effect on families that have kids that don't travel out of town and have to be taking transportation. So the transportation costs, there's the other pieces of it that we're paying high rates to have outside experts in other places teach, and where it's possible that we can deliver those services in town, that's another area for savings. So part of what your interaction as a public can be is to help support those types of things and to talk with other parents who have children in special needs programs, understand that we are trying to do more in-house here. And there's an emotional attachment, especially when your child's already out, so then it's a comfortable place. And people have mentioned here tonight, once you're in a place, your child's comfortable, then you don't want to run. Okay, we're moving, we're physically moving you, either our house is moving or, we're taking you from school A to school B because of the situation. So all those things can be offsetting dollar amounts to us as we think through the process, especially the burden of special ed being high itself. Some savings there can significantly go toward a program here. We're talking about 1.5% of our budget is an increase. If you're looking at over $600,000 is 1% of our budget. So this program here is going to represent over that in some scope to find. I think it's appropriate to find it. It's a matter of working hard to do it. I appreciate the output and input that people have come here to express tonight and continue to be involved, please. Thank you.
I wanted to thank the parents, but also the teachers for coming. I think that the reality is that we are a board of people that is representing the town and really working with the administration to try to make Guilford the best school system possible. But the reality is Barbara Dudley is the only teacher on this board, so that you really provide the detail that you provided us tonight is very helpful. Certainly, I appreciate the detail. I have 2 children that are well past kindergarten, and we're in kindergarten for just 2.5 hours, but I think probably at a different time. One's in high school and one's in 8th grade. So I appreciate everyone coming and everyone talking. The detail that you were able to provide is really helpful as we kind of really consider the importance and weigh the costs, weigh the many things that we'd love to do when we think about all the areas that we'd like to improve. So thank you for that detail. That was really helpful.
Okay, can I make one more comment?
Sure.
Just reflecting on what Liz said about this year, and I mentioned, I do have a child in kindergarten this year. I mentioned the staff at Lakes has been great working with us to help him get in a better place, but also recognize that we're going to be on thin ice for a while with him, and we're going to be vigilant to keep him in a good place, and I know they will be as well. But I guess I would urge you to kind of carry that message and reiterate what she had said about, that message coming down and allowing, where it can be allowed, flexibility or professional discretion to work some of these things back into the program and back into their mornings or their afternoons. That will help, I think, a tremendous amount throughout the rest of this year. Hopefully this gets passed next year, and we truly want to see that happen. But there is a lot of school left. And so if that message can be carried up and then back down from whoever it needs to come to allow that discretion to the teachers to work some of these things back in and say it is okay to do this where it can be, I think that would be something that needs to be considered strongly. So, thanks.
Yeah, and I should just say, we did get a couple of letters. Oh, is that where you are?
That's where I was going to go.
Fine, go ahead.
I did receive 3 electronic communications today from community members who could not be here. Mrs. Molnar wrote and wanted to note her support for full-day kindergarten, so I can provide the letter to for the minutes, but wanted to note that, her support in that area. And both Mr. Mitzelfeldts and Mrs. Medvecki wrote and wanted to support the suggestion of a study to look at the supports for high-achieving students in the district. And I promised each of those individuals that I would share their comments with the meeting tonight.
Right. Okay. Anybody else? Any other board members have any observations, comments, thoughts?
Thank you all.
We really do appreciate you coming, and we will evaluate and think about all the things that you've said. I really can appreciate what your kindergarten teachers are struggling with. The demands are tremendous, and time is short. And we hope we can solve that problem next year. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, well, Mr. Bishop, if you want to make a motion to adjourn, that would seem somehow appropriate.
Yes, Mr. Bloss, I so moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you
Thank you all
all
for coming out.